Matthew chapter 6, verse 5 to 18. So right through Matthew 5 and now into Matthew 6, with this really long section of Jesus on the mountainside, teaching his disciples. It started with the Beatitudes, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, and so on. And Jesus has covered a whole bunch of topics with them, like the Old Testament law, the ethics and right living within this new coming kingdom. Remember, Jesus is preaching the good news of a new kind of kingdom that, as he speaks, is drawing close to earth, the kingdom of heaven invading earth. And so now, as we move in today's reading, I think it flows naturally into prayer, into praying to the Father for this new kingdom to be established here on earth. Jesus starts with some general comments about prayer, and he's contrasting how the religious pray and how the pagans pray. And he's contrasting that with what prayer looks like in this new coming kingdom. The religious, the Pharisees, they pray in a way to impress others, as a way of signalling to others their virtue and their superiority. Jesus is not condemning public prayers here. He's condemning praying for the respect and applause of men. I think as humans, we have a tendency when we pray to want to pray in a way that impresses others or influences others. And so it's a challenge around our motivation in our corporate prayers to keep them Godward focused. And then how the pagans pray. Why do the pagans keep on babbling? Why do the pagans use so many words? Well, again, I don't think Jesus is condemning the use of long prayers. Rather, I think that the pagans, they have to keep praying and praying and praying because they've got no confidence that their idols can hear them. They've got no confidence that their gods will listen to them or act on their behalf, so they have to keep on asking and asking. You know, I think that perseverance and persistence in prayer is really important. As long as it sits on a foundation of knowing who God is, praying to him as Father, a good Father who knows what we need in advance of us asking it, and we know he responds to our prayers. I've certainly experienced times in prayer where it's like faith gets activated and you switch from asking and asking and asking for God to do something, like to heal someone, and you find yourself thanking him in advance for what is already done. It's not about formula, but I think, you know, it's about being responsive to how God is leading us in prayer. So I think, you know, repetition, persistence, it's important, but it can't come from a place that we're doubting that God has heard us or is interested in us. That said, this first section on prayer really does challenge us to consider the place of prayer in our lives as waiting on God in silence. Prayer is listening to God. After all, prayer is far more about a spiritual conversation, a two-way conversation, than giving God your to-do list. Well, we then move into perhaps one of the most well-known sections of scriptures. We call it the Lord's Prayer, the prayer that Jesus taught us. And I've been saying throughout these devotions that we see a covenant kingdom pattern in Matthew's gospel. Covenant first, relationship, identity first, then kingdom second, kingdom activity, responsibility, reflexing out of right covenant identity. And it's true here in the Lord's Prayer. I don't know if you saw that. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Holy is your name. That is a statement of identity, of relationship, of covenant. And it reflexes into a prayer. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Kingdom activity. I do think this prayer is a prayer to be prayed aloud, but I also think it's a pattern and approach for praying. And in this opening couplet, we see a great and profound truth about prayer, covenant, and kingdom. If you're looking for more on unpacking the Lord's Prayer as a process and pattern for praying, I'd really recommend that you Google Mike Breen's stuff on life shapes, the hexagon. It talks about the Father's character, the Father's kingdom, the Father's provision, the Father's forgiveness, the Father's guidance and protection. For me, they've been really helpful, I suppose, categories to help shape how I pray each day. But let me just pick up on this bit on the end, verse 16 on fasting. For Jesus, talking about fasting naturally flows out of him talking about prayer. They go hand in hand together. Jesus says, when you fast, not if you fast. And I'd really encourage everyone who is medically able to do so to develop a regular rhythm of fasting. As a church, we call it a bridegroom fast. We eat our evening meal on a Monday, and then we fast 24 hours and break that fast on our evening meal on a Tuesday. It's about fasting for more of the presence of Jesus in our lives. That's what I think Matthew 9 is about when it talks about fasting. And we see that here in our reading. Jesus is challenging the idea of Pharisaical fasting, like Pharisaical prayer. Fasting horizontally for the approval and applause of others, or pagan fasting like pagan prayer, fasting because you need to get God's arm up his back to get his attention through your suffering because you don't quite believe he's interested in you enough. So this year, why not build fasting into a regular rhythm in your life? And I pray that you will have a blessed day today.